Episode 5, Saving. Savings is truly the holy grail of money management. It all starts here, and it actually offers us what we truly want in terms of our finances, which is freedom. Freedom of choice. Freedom of choice of whether to go to an institution, to get a loan, or whether to have an emergency fund where you have put your own money away. Once you've paid all your expenses and paid your monthly debt repayments, there's apparently nothing left to put towards savings. Now, we know this isn't true, right? Because now we're in episode 5. So we've planned our savings, we've planned our spending. We have a budget where we found, after tracking our expenses, that we actually have quite a few leakages in our monthly money management. So we know that we are actually able to save. And the trick is to save at the beginning of the month. And this is where the concept pay yourself first comes in. Now, let me first clear a very, very common misconception. Sometimes when I say pay yourself first, people think, oh, that's the opportunity for me to go out and buy the greatest pair of shoes or go and spend my money in a manner that is just for me. Yes, it is absolutely just for you. But it is not about taking money out and spending it. It is actually about considering yourself worthy enough to put a little bit away for a rainy day in future. So I am my most important creditor, therefore I pay myself first. Not the rent, not the rates and taxes, not the city of Windhoek, not your telephone, but yourself first. How much should you be putting away? So I'm sure you've heard of the rule, the 10% rule, where we say put 10% away for savings. And when we spoke about the budgeting tools previously, such as the 50-30-20 rule, we had devised that 20% is what you would put away for savings and for long-term investment. So 10% would go towards your short-term savings and another 10% would go towards your long-term savings. Short-term, how would we define that? We define that as, say, 1 to 12 months, maybe even up to 2 years. But what really defines short-term saving is that in that respect, you are not really interested in the return on your money. You are more interested in the return of your money. So when you're looking at a savings vehicle, you're looking at an opportunity to protect your capital, not necessarily grow your capital. And we'll have a look at a few examples shortly. The other 10% that we would prioritize towards our long-term goals. So what are long-term goals? Those are the goals that we have that we are necessarily going to realize in about a period of, say, 5 to 10 years. So here we're willing to put our money away for quite some time. And we actually have a reasonable expectation of a good return on that money because we're willing to give up its use for quite some time. A very different conversation from the short term, where we said we're more interested in the return of our money. When it comes to the long term, we are far more interested in the return on our money. So we have an expectation that our money should not only grow, we in fact expect it to grow more than what the increase in general prices is growing. Here I'm referring to inflation. So of course, if we're willing to give up the use of our money in the now, we have an expectation that over time it actually gives us more than we could have earned or than we could have used. In the long term, it's very important for us to ensure that our money actually beats inflation. Putting away 10% towards your short-term goals might feel quite impossible right now. 10% could be too big a percentage to consider. Well, you can break it down into small, manageable steps. Remember what we did with our goal setting. Have a look at what is realistic and what is achievable for you. It could be that you start with 2%. The important thing is to get started and then to build on the momentum and then to become disciplined at what you do and then to experience the freedom of choice that comes with having good money management skills. So what are some of the tips that we can consider when it comes to savings? 1, consider making regular payments of the same amount to a separate account which you can distinguish from your normal expenses. 2, you could set up a debit order or a scheduled payment so you don't need to remember to put the money away every month. The less you think about it, the more feasible it is that it will actually happen. 3, look for a vehicle that's easily accessible and reasonably liquid. So if you need the money at short notice, you can actually access it. It must be easy to turn into cash. And if possible, look at a vehicle that is tax efficient. 4, set some boundaries. It's important for you to know under what circumstances you allow yourself to touch your savings. Consider a vehicle that doesn't carry too much risk, because if we say that in the short term you are interested in protecting your capital, you certainly do not want to place it in any area where it might be too risky and you might not get the capital back when you need it at short notice. The reward for your discipline is the freedom you will experience in your money matters once you have a wonderful emergency fund that you can draw on for those special expenses that you would like to be able to cater for. We suggest that you use your goal-setting worksheet and plan for an emergency fund, for example, or another goal that you have in the short term. Perhaps you'd like to make a down payment on a vehicle. Let's use the example that we used in episode 2 again. Let's say we want an emergency fund that is 60,000 strong. That might be the magic number that you have to tick off on your emergency fund. Now, if you wanted to achieve that goal within 12 months, it would require you to put away $5,000 $1 million a month, which can feel like a very, very big amount, a bit like that 10% we were talking about. But what if you could bring that amount down to $2,000 a month? Yes, your goal might take a little bit longer to get to, 30 months in total, but it might feel easier to do. What are some of the options that you could use that would be worthwhile to house your dollars in the short term? We're going to have a look at a short comparison table, and you can decide what works best for you. So the first option we have is, for example, a money market unit trust. This is a unit trust that exists with various money market instruments. It is necessarily quite low risk because the underlying assets resemble cash and other money market instruments. And there's only a 10% withholding tax on interest that is applicable. The funds are rather liquid. You're able to receive those funds within 2 to 3 days maximum, depending on which institution you are working with. And the fees are quite transparent and you know exactly what it is that you are paying for. A second option would be a savings account readily available at any financial institution, which is also reasonably low risk and at the same time ensures that your capital is protected. You could also look at a fixed deposit option. This option remains low risk, the only challenge being that if you need the funds at short notice, you may experience a penalty for having to break that deposit and having to access the funds earlier than what you had promised the financial institution you would actually need the funds. So just something to bear in mind. A very popular option is what we call a stokvel. And a stokvel is actually an invitation-only club of a group of people who agree to pool funds and for each one to benefit at a particular point in time. What is the risk in that? Well, the risk really depends on the group and on the vehicle that is used to house this savings. The last option, which is really not the best option, is the one of under the mattress. Many of us believe that the safest place for us to keep our money is as close as possible to us, but we are actually exposing it to an extremely high risk. It can be stolen. It also doesn't gather any interest. So not only would your capital not be protected, it might completely disappear. Now, each of us is unique, and as unique as we are, as unique are our goals. The most important thing to remember is that you are your most important creditor. Therefore, you should pay yourself first and treat yourself as the precious asset that you are. I wish you the best of luck. Remember, the beauty is in the consistency. Keep repeating your good habits long enough for them to stick, and you will reap infinite rewards.